We are now on to the resolution for Mr. Culpepper, resolution to comply with legal obligations in exchange for receiving federal financial assistance. So we're going to get a motion and a second on the floor, and then we'll have Mr. Culpepper read this. I have gotten, I think, more than one substitute, so as we navigate through these, try to keep your comments to the motions on the floor. Moved by Mr. Culpepper, seconded by Mr. Bowensteel. Mr. Culpepper, would you please read your motion?
Absolutely. Resolution to comply with legal obligations in exchange for receiving federal financial assistance. Whereas the school board of the City of Virginia Beach has previously adopted policies, procedures, practices, and strategic framework, including diversity, equity, and inclusion. And whereas President Trump signed Executive Order 14190 on January 29, 2025, titled Ending Radical Indoctrination in K-12 Schooling. And whereas on February 14, 2025, the United States Department of Education Office for Civil Rights published a Dear Colleague letter reiterating legal requirements under Title VI of the Civil Rights Act of 1964 and Equal Protection Clause of the United States Constitution. Whereas on February 28, 2025, the U.S. DOE released frequently asked questions about racial preferences and stereotypes under Title VI of the Civil Rights Act. And whereas on April 3, 2025, the school board of the City of Virginia Beach received a request for certification of compliance from the Virginia Department of Education titled Reminder of Legal Obligations Undertaken in Exchange for Receiving Federal Financial Assistance and Request for Certification under Title VI and SFFA versus Harvard. Whereas the deadline for this certification is April 11, 2025 at 5 p.m. Now, therefore, it be resolved that 1. The school board of the City of Virginia Beach directs the superintendent or designee to work with legal counsel for the school board to take the necessary steps to comply with the above federal guidance under Title VI. 2, the school board directs the superintendent to rename the Department of Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion to the Department of Opportunity and Achievement, and to work with legal counsel for the school board to suspend all educational program offerings that do not comply with the above federal guidance, including but not limited to the Equity Plan, the Equity Dashboard, and any educational program offerings that would not comply. 3, the school board directs the superintendent to suspend Policy 5-4 until the Policy Review Committee has brought recommended changes to the school board for approval no later than May 31, 2025. 4, the school board directs the superintendent or designee to work with legal counsel for the school board to suspend any portion of the 2025 or 2030 strategic framework that does not comply with the above guidance, including but not limited to all references to equity and equity emphasis, diversified workforce, the equity dashboard, and racial emphasis. 5, the school board directs the superintendent or designee to recommend modifications to the 2025 and 2030 strategic framework to be in compliance with the above guidance for information no later than May 15, 2025. 6, the school board directs the superintendent or designee to work with legal counsel for the school board to evaluate employment, contracting, and purchasing practices to ensure consistency with the above guidance. 7, the school board directs the superintendent to sign the certification and send it to the Virginia Department of Education. 8, the superintendent or designee is directed to provide the school board with timely updates concerning compliance with this resolution. This resolution is adopted by the school board of the City of Virginia Beach on this 8th day of April 2025.
Okay, Mr. Culpepper, would you like to speak to that resolution before opening the floor?
Yeah, briefly, no. I'll let our colleagues talk here. I think the simple way for me to look at this problem is that we have two choices, not three. The choice some agencies have made here is essentially to claim they are eliminating DEI practices, change the name of the office, and then actually do nothing that actually changes it. Our two choices are to either honor the guidance we've been given and certify that we have done so and accept federal funds in exchange, or to basically state that we don't agree with these practices and to turn them down and to turn down federal funds by the same token. I obviously put forward that we don't do that.
Mr. Cummings?
Yeah, I'd like to make a motion to defer this vote to a special school board meeting on Thursday that we decide. I believe that the public has a right to review this resolution, given that it impacts and suspends policy that could impact study programs, bridge programs, tutoring after school, and other listed policies in School Board Policy 5-4. I believe that we have to have more information before we rush to a decision that we were just recently given and that the public hasn't had time to digest to fully understand what would take place and what would happen. So I'd like to make a motion to defer this vote to Thursday, to a time that we agree as a school board to meet for a special meeting.
Ms. Linetti? So there's a motion on the floor to defer this to a special meeting on Thursday, and I know that we have special processes for special meetings.
Special meetings only require a notice reasonable under the circumstances, so you could set that meeting. Now, it's a motion by a school board member, the board can vote on it right now. He's asking you to actually vote, which is one method to
Okay.
get a special meeting.
Okay, is there a second? Seconded by Ms. Rogers. Dr. Green, are you discussing the deferral?
No,
Okay. Any discussion on the deferral?
but I do want to make comments when my comments are relative to the original resolution.
Okay, so if this motion passes, then it would be on the next meeting, so. Okay, Mr. Cummings, do you have comments on yours?
My comments, I just want to reiterate that I think it's important that the public has time to read through this document because it was not shared within our school board agendas, and that they have time to evaluate and provide feedback to the school board if this is the direction that we should or should not be going. I'm of the opinion that some of these things on here extend beyond the requirements, but I would also like the opportunity for the public to weigh in, and I think that's a fair ask, that we are a transparent board. We serve the citizens of our districts, of the city, and I think that they should have the opportunity to weigh in and communicate with us about what they think this policy should be.
Madam Chair, can I jump in at this point? Chief of Staff has pointed out to me something which, being business, it appears that there may have been extension granted from the U.S. Department of Education to extend that deadline to April 24th for this. I'm just looking at this very quickly. I'm going to give us a second look. That might, not that against the special meeting, but you would have another meeting on the 22nd rather than having to schedule a special meeting. I'm looking at this very quickly.
It's April 23rd at 5 o'clock.
April 23rd, yeah, that looks like 24th would be for the state to turn it in, so we've got the 23rd. We still have a meeting on the 22nd. I'm not against you doing a meeting this week, but if it would be easier to use a meeting date that you already have, it appears that there is an extension to this time period. So I'm looking very quickly at this.
Can you, I feel like news is coming at us real fast. Cammy, can you email the school board so we can look at what you just said?
Yeah, I'm looking at official. It does appear that there may be a 10-day extension's been granted. And I'm looking to see, Dr. Robinson, have you seen anything out of VDOE? I'm seeing this out of reporting schedules on there. I'm not clear.
Yeah, I'll send it to them right now.
If that's the case, then not that you couldn't have a meeting this Thursday, but you would have a regular school board meeting scheduled between now and that date. So if that helps you at all.
Ms. Vice Chair Weems?
Yes, whether the date is extended or not to the 23rd, I will not be supporting any deferral. I don't think that it's going to change our direction or our need to start on this because there's some work to be done. Thank you.
Okay, so I call for a vote. Mr. Cummings, could you please restate your motion?
I'd like to amend my motion to go to the next meeting then, the April 22nd.
Ms. Rogers, do you second that amendment?
Yes.
Okay, so we're going to vote on the amendment to move this to the April 22nd meeting. That will be the vote that we're having. Is there any discussion on that? Vice Chair Weems?
Again, I won't be supporting that because as a time crunch, that gives us less than, 15 hours or 24 hours for the certification. Thank you.
Mr. Cummings, I'm gonna go ahead and switch to line. I'll come back to you though, or are you still wanting to be able to keep yourself in line? Okay. Ms. Rogers?
There are there's some stuff in the language that I am concerned about that will inadvertently suspend services to our students.
We're discussing deferring right now.
Right, so
Okay.
that's why I'm okay with deferring it so that we have time to actually, that also grants us more time to see what we need to do. I feel like this is very hasty because we don't want to lose our funding, but we can do a better job of making sure that we're not inadvertently cutting things that we don't want to cut.
Mr. Culpepper?
Yeah, two things. One, I do think that the way this is written, it points out that the superintendent and staff is to work with council to ensure that exactly that doesn't happen, that we don't cut things that shouldn't be cut, but that we address immediately things that we are aware of that don't comply with these guidelines. And I think that's our obligation. The second thing I would say is, Mr. Cummings' point about public comment is 100% valid. But I would point out that the issue of DEI didn't come up yesterday. It didn't come up last night when I sent this email. It has been present, and there have been speakers here discussing DEI on both sides of the coin. So I think the public has had an opportunity to comment.
Mr. Cummings?
I think that, specifically where I think the public has to have opportunity to comment and that I would prefer to see this information today is to know what exactly, if we suspend policy, how that impacts our day-to-day operations for our school, for our kids, for our learners, for our staff. And I think, quite frankly, that, a lot of us ran on transparency, a lot of us ran on community, and we have a duty to the people we serve, the public, to have the opportunity to weigh in on specific things being voted on. That is a core tenet of the school board. It's a core tenet of our civil and civic government locally, that they have the opportunity to email us and connect with us. And so that's why I will support my motion.
Dr. Green?
The proposed motion on the floor from Mr. Cummins, I do support because I think it's very important as well that we have public input. Several comments referenced the quick turnaround time. Well, when we originally thought it was going to be the 11th, we were going to have to address it tonight. So now we have time for the public to have input. I think it would only be fair that we do allow them to have input since now that the timeline has been extended. And again, I repeat, we were going to push this, some of us were going to try to vote on this tonight, thinking that it was going to be 5 p.m. on Thursday. And the only ask I have is, Ms. Linetti, on the 23rd, we have another major school division event that I would not want into conflict because some of the folks at that event may want to come to voice their opinion on this proposal if it is so decided that we will defer.
Your school board means the 22nd, the
Right, but
23rd.
you had said something about the 23rd.
Oh, I think that's when we have to send it in.
Okay.
Okay, seeing no more discussion, I call for the vote on Mr. Cummings' amended substitute motion. Please restate it.
Thank you. Motion to defer resolution to April 22nd, 2025 school board meeting.
All right, voting board's open.
So, Madam Chair, we have 3 ayes and 6 nays, so the substitute motion, the motion did not pass.
Okay, and we are now back to the original motion, and so that would be Dr. Green.
Thank you. I have been in public education for 39 years. 17 of those I have spent here in Virginia Beach Public Schools, advocating for all students, removing barriers to learning. With that being said, in my opinion, this proposed resolution that is currently on the floor for us to vote on, I find to be very offensive and intended to disrupt students' academic process. I'm disappointed that all school board members were not included in the original development of this resolution, and that it only represents the perspective of a few of my colleagues who were permitted to be a part of the creation of this document. I did receive this document less than 24 hours ago when I opened it in my email around 10 p.m. last night. It is also disappointing to believe that removing diversity, equity, and inclusion from our school division's best practices will ensure the continued academic success of all students. This is no more than extortion from the federal government to block education to certain groups of students in exchange for money. Do you really believe that if this resolution is executed, there will not be more shakedowns from the federal government that will promote a reversion to segregated schools and to public education? This is a means to continue the destruction of public education. Not only is this resolution shameful, it is full of ambiguities. For example, it contradicts many requirements mandated by the Virginia Department of Education for ensuring academic progress and opportunities for all students. Another contradiction to this extortion of public education in exchange for federal funding is tied to many data reports the school divisions, all school divisions, must submit to the Virginia Department of Education and federal agencies, which include the academic progress of students by subgroups such as race, gender, ethnicity, disabilities, and social and economic levels. It is equally important to ensure that our students have a diverse workforce, so eliminating practices that have promoted Virginia Beach City Public Schools to be able to hire the most highly qualified staff is demoralizing to our students and to our staff. I recognize that these executive orders from the federal government are hiding behind the cloak of cultural demeaning by disrupting the progress of Virginia Beach City Public Schools students who have demonstrated success because they had opportunity and equal access. This resolution also erodes the self-worth of our students while erasing the many contributions made by diverse cultures designed to make students feel proud of their heritage, even if they are not of European descent. So I ask, what faces do you see at the end of these appalling executive orders designed to destroy our school division? I see 65,546 students of various races, ethnicities, genders, and disabilities who should not become pawns in the cultural war holding them hostage by withholding federal funding that have made this division a premier school division. I recognize some of my colleagues believe this is a way to ensure our students receive the necessary funding to be successful. I do not. It's discriminatory and the beginning of public education, of a public education system that will not ensure the academic success of all students. Why would you want to destroy the self-esteem of our students and ensure failure of those who benefit from federally funded programs such as Title I, free and reduced lunch programs, and special education services, to name a few. There are many more programs that may be impacted if this resolution is signed. Remember, once you pay the ransom, there will be more demands for our school division to be extorted, holding funding sources hostage to opportunities designed to ensure our students become productive and contributing members to our American democracy as we know it today. Again, I have always been an advocate for students. I will continue to be. I have demonstrated that most recently by supporting the Recovery School, which provides a wonderful opportunity for our students who suffer with addictions, as well as recently the expansion of the bus transportation for Achievable Dream. I would be remiss and would not be able to rest at night knowing I did not speak out against this. I will not be voting for any resolution. You can amend it, you can remove the, a, one or two words that will not allow all students to move forward. All students.
Okay. Mr. Cummings?
I will echo my colleague's sentiment and her comments about my concerns of how the federal administration is looking to hold us hostage with withholding funds that impact the most vulnerable folks in our society. Who, in their right mind, says we're going to not fund food for hungry kids? Now, I was raised religious. Jesus said when you're hungry, give someone food to eat. You don't withhold it because you disagree with them. And to me, to see this resolution, to see this come down from the administration, to recognize the legitimacy of not federal law, of an executive order with Lord knows how many have already been challenged, how many mistakes have already been made with these executive orders. I just don't give any legitimacy to that body. It's unfortunate that they're at the point where they think we as an institution cannot feed our kids because we have a difference of ideas. I find that awful and abhorrent and just morally it hurts my heart that is the pieces and things that they would say and that they would do. So I have, the dear letter colleague thing pulled up, and I just read through this, and I just wonder, this is not what I see happening in Virginia Beach City Public Schools. I see teachers, I see educators working day in, day out to make sure that our kids thrive and that they survive and that they obtain the next steps necessary to find success in their life. And so I will not be supporting this resolution.
Mr. Culpepper?
Hyperbole is off the hook. I don't know what to say. Don, let me ask you something. Sorry, Mr. Superintendent. Is there anything in this resolution here that will require you to take food out of anybody's mouth?
Nothing that specifically speaks to food out of students' mouth. I think the reference is, one of the things that has come out is that whether or not the All Hungry Students Act, which is part of federal funding, would be subject to removal if you were in violation of the executive order. So I think that's the reference.
No, it's part of all federal funding, you mean? Okay.
Yes, all federal funding, yes.
Well, I'm somewhat entertained by the fact that people have suddenly woke up to the fact that the Federal Department of Education extorts localities. That's been going on for 50 years, and apparently it's only a problem now because it's demanding something some people don't like. The core of this is Title VI of the Civil Rights Act 1964. No person in the United States shall, on the ground of race, color, or national origin, be excluded from participation in, be denied the benefits of, or be subject to discrimination in any program or activity receiving federal financial assistance. That's basically what this is saying do. This is saying don't discriminate. Don't discriminate in favor of anybody based on national origin, color, or race. Don't discriminate against anybody based on race, color, or national origin. To some degree, I don't know what to say, because in my lifetime, that used to be how things mostly were. And I recognize that everybody has a different life. But I think a lot of people run around thinking that they're the only one who ever has a hard time in their life. Or that they're the only one that has a hard time, and because I have a hard time, it's because people don't like the color of my skin, or people don't like my hair color, or people don't like my eyes, people don't like the way I walk, people don't like the way I talk. Well, the latter one's justifiable. Everybody's got a hard life. Everybody works hard. Individuals have an obligation to treat one another with dignity and respect. They absolutely do. We as a government institution have an obligation to treat everybody the same. And that's what this does.
Ms. Rogers?
I would like to submit a substitute motion for a substitute resolution, I guess. Yes.
Okay. Will you motion and read your
Yeah, I think-
substitute, please?
Thank you. Okay, so you want me to read it first before I have comment? Okay, so to comply with, resolution to comply with legal obligations in exchange for receiving federal financial assistance. Whereas the School Board of City of Virginia Beach has previously adopted policies, procedures, practices, and strategic framework, and whereas the President Trump signed Executive Order 14190 on January 29th, 2025, entitled Ending Radical Indoctrination in K-12 Schooling. And whereas February 14th, 2025, the United States Department of Education Office for Civil Rights, the USDOE, published a Dear Colleague letter reiterating legal requirements under Title 6 of the Civil Rights Act of 1964 and Equal Protection Clause of the United States Constitution, as whereas February 28th, 2025, the USDOE released frequently asked questions about racial preferences and stereotypes under Title VI of Civil Rights Act. And whereas on April 3rd, 2025, the School Board of City of Virginia Beach received a request for certification of compliance from the Virginia Department of Education titled Reminder of Legal Obligations Undertaken in Exchange for Receiving Federal Financial Assistance, and request for certification under Title VI and SFFA versus Harvard. Whereas the deadline for the certification is April 11th, 2025 at 5 p.m., although, okay. Now therefore be resolved that the School Board of the City of Virginia Beach School Board directs the superintendent or designee to work with legal counsel for the school board to take the necessary steps to comply with federal and state law. The school board directs the superintendent to rename the Department of Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion to better reflect the work being completed in that office and to comply with federal and state laws. The school board further directs the superintendent to work with legal counsel for the school board to continue all educational program offerings to ensure they're in compliance with both federal and state law. The School Board Policy Review Committee will review Policy 5-4 to ensure compliance with federal and state law and bring recommended changes to the school board for approval no later than May 31st, 2025. The school board directs the superintendent or designee to work with legal counsel for the school board to suspend any portion of the 2025 or 2030 strategic framework to be in compliance with federal and state law. And the school board directs the superintendent or designee to recommend modifications to the 2025 and 2030 strategic framework to be in compliance with federal and state law for information no later than May 31st, 2025. The school board directs the superintendent or designee to work with legal counsel for the school board to evaluate employment, contracting, and purchasing practices to ensure consistency with federal and state law. The school board directs the superintendent to sign the certification and send it to the Virginia Department of Education. Superintendent or designee is directed to provide the school board with timely updates concerning compliance with the resolution. Resolution is adopted 8th day of April 2025. I had concerns with some of the language. I completely understand Dr. Green's issues and concerns, and I echo them. However, I also understand the school board we're sitting in. And the majority of the school board wants this to go forward, but my concerns are with the language. And so I'm proposing this amendment so that we are, again, complying with federal and state regulations, which at times we need to do what the federal law is requiring us as well as what state is requiring us. So I want to make sure that we don't have to continually bring resolutions if federal and state laws or guidance change. Have one resolution. We always do what federal and state laws tell us to, and we don't have to bring another resolution when things change. We see how quickly things are changing at the federal level. I think it's important that we aren't continually having to change what we say we're going to do. In section 2, I want to give the superintendent the ability to name the office that is right now Department of Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion to whatever he thinks is necessary as per his contract. So I want to make sure that he's able to do that, and we're not ordering him to say, what the office is going to be. In section 3, I'm highly concerned about the term suspending when it comes to our students' programs, and so that's why I said amended it to continue the educational programs to ensure that they're in compliance. I don't want there to be any interruption of service to students. I think that that's our number one goal, make sure our students are always served. And so if we go to suspending services, we don't know how long it's going to take to unsuspend them, and that could cause a major disruption to service to students. I'm also concerned about the possibility of removing necessary information. For example, the equity dashboard, as Dr. Green stated, includes information that we are required to report to the VDOE. I don't want to throw the baby out with the bathwater. I want to make sure that we are keeping information that we are required to report and not completely removing dashboards. So I feel like if we are naming less, we're able to then do more and, keep information that we need to keep, and not just getting rid of things and then realizing, oops, I needed that. Naming specific changes like the equity plan, and not naming others. I don't want to be said, well, why did you name this and not name that? I think if we generalize, it allows us to make necessary changes without saying, we're going to exactly do 1, 2, or 3, but oops, we forgot 4, 5, and 6. I feel like we just need to say we're going to comply with state and federal laws. That's what we've always done. That's what we need to continue to do. And in saying that, I think that we're actually going to be doing what we need to do, and we're not going to be accidentally doing things that we don't mean to do.
Mr. Cummings?
I feel like I need some points of information.
Who from?
Well, me.
Me, her? Me or Ms. Rogers?
Probably Dr. Robertson.
Dr. Robertson, okay.
And so this relates to curriculum, School Board Policy 54F, and the dichotomy between Ms. Rogers' resolution and the original one proposed with the word suspend versus, I think what she says, review. 4F4 says class instructional activities and extracurricular programs. So instructional activities, I assume, means coursework designed to provide opportunities for cross-cultural and cross-racial interactions that foster respect for diversity. If we suspend this policy, how would that impact curriculum? I'm thinking along with clubs as well. As a parent with a student at the Tallwood Global, World Language Global Studies Academy, they have upcoming events that celebrate cross-cultural, awareness, celebrate diversity. If we suspend this policy, how does that impact these extracurricular programs?
So let me talk about the curricular content first. The State Department of Education in Virginia has an evaluation standard, standard 6 on culturally competent, and culturally competent, what's the standard? Darnay, do you know it? Dr. Trotman, the director. Yeah, so in our evaluation instrument, we have the 2 things required by the state of Virginia that could be in conflict with a suspension of policy 5.4. In addition, within the curriculum that is given to us by the state of Virginia, there are examples across curricular area and content areas where the resources are provided to meet that standard of creating a classroom setting where all students see themselves in the learning. So the Department of Teaching and Learning team has been looking through their existing content, and they have several concerns about what this could mean. And in terms of clubs and activities, unfortunately, I think there could be a case that some of the planned activities may be in conflict with this, and, you know, a suspension of policy 5.4 will probably lead us to cancel those activities until we're sure. Because the other concern is, quite frankly, talking to superintendents, when I put my name on this document, I've just put my name on the line to be fired. Because as soon as something gets reported and it gets come back and somebody says, we're investigating Virginia Beach City Public Schools for something in this document, the superintendent's going to be fired with cause. So there's great concern among the superintendents in Virginia as to putting their name on this document. I will do what's required by the school board. But to Mr. Cummings' point, there's a great deal of anxiety around the term suspension of something versus a more closer look.
Thank you for that clarification. I think that was part of the reason I wanted to defer this vote, because based on the original reading, I don't think the downstream impact of clubs, co-curricular involvement, courses, curriculum, and if you read through policy 5.4, go to the curriculum and instruction section, curriculum and instructional materials, did those get changed immediately when we suspend the policy? Do we stop tutoring programs after school if we suspend this policy?
No, we would not stop tutoring programs. Those are for all students.
Because F5 does say part of the policy is tutoring during after school. So I have extreme hesitation towards the word suspend, and while I still don't like the policy, I would lean in towards Ms. Rogers' language in that. And I'd love to hear from my colleagues what they think about co-curricular things being canceled by our kids where they no longer get to participate in their club activities.
Dr. Green?
Two things. First, thank you, Ms. Rogers, for your effort for rewording, but for me, it's still problematic. So thank you. My second question is, next question, that was comment, is for Ms. Linetti. So Ms. Linetti, is the superintendent required to sign this document? Meaning such as, can a school board chair sign it? Does it have to be the superintendent?
The certification doesn't specify, it actually reads SEA, State Education Association / LEA. So who's ever officially authorized to sign on behalf of that agency, it could be the superintendent, it could be some of the school board designates to do it, but it doesn't specify who has to sign it.
So Dr. Robertson doesn't have to sign it, so could the school board chair be allowed to sign it?
If the school board designates and asks the school board chair or another school member to sign, that could happen because the school board chair would be considered a representative of the school
Right,
division.
that was my point. Okay.
I am going to chime in on the certification. I do not run the day-to-day operations of the division. Therefore, I am unequipped to certify whether or not things are in compliance or not in compliance with that. There is a false claim statement. I think that it would be very unfair for my colleagues to ask me to sign something that I cannot oversee, so I just want to throw that out there. Ms. Rogers.
This is for Dr. Robertson again. There are clubs. I don't need to say clubs. Guess it's a club. It's a kind of tutoring that we have students who are paired with special education students, and it is to promote inclusivity with special education students. Would that be affected with the policies being suspended?
That would not.
Okay.
Ms. Dwyer, we're speaking to Ms. Rogers' substitute.
Yeah, I just wanted to back you up on that. I don't think anybody sitting here would want their name there, and have that accountability. Let's be honest, guys. We're not in compliance. That's what the issue is. And we've been given a mandate, and there are no other options.
Vice Chair Weems?
Yes, I totally agree with Ms. Dwyer. We are not in compliance, and to ensure that we get 70, 80, 90 million dollars for our most, to continue for our most vulnerable students, and to make sure that we can sign, or Dr. Robertson can sign with confidence that we are going to do something, and that's what this resolution does. It says we're going to start acting, and we're going to start doing so that we will be compliant. So I appreciate the passion for my colleagues. Ms. Rogers, I appreciate that substitute, but I will not be able to support that. Thank you.
Ms. Rogers?
I understand everyone's concern about not being in compliance. However, I am absolutely certain that with the language that's in there, we're going to be eliminating things that we should not. And I don't want to be responsible for interrupting any student's academic or educational program offerings. That's, the language specifically says to suspend all educational program offerings. It's doing too much. We need to make sure that we can review everything without suspension to our students' programmings. We are here to ensure our students are being educated. This decision by the federal government to tell us that we need to make changes should not suspend their educational programming. They should not know what's going on. We can do this without them knowing, if we choose that. But we have to make that decision. That's what this language is doing. We are making the decision to comply with federal and state law. Yes, we will do that. But I do not want to interrupt any child's programming because we didn't realize that when we put this language in here, that's what was going to happen. So I'm super strongly advocating for us to sign this amendment, to vote on this amendment so we don't do something inadvertently. I've been on the education side in the classroom when decisions were made and the full extent of our decision-making affects the students. And I then, as the teacher, had to say, I'm sorry, kids, we have to do it this way now because that's what we're being told to do. It is awful. And I don't want the students in our school division to have to feel the effects of the chaos of what's going on in our federal and state decision-making. I mean, we're here to do the right thing. I get that. I understand that we want, that the majority of the board wants to be compliant. I don't want to eliminate programs inadvertently that our students need.
We're going to move on to Ms. Dwyer, and then we're going to vote on the substitute motion.
Ms. Rogers, I know you're not.
Ms. Dwyer,
Point of
you
order.
cannot,
Oh,
you have to
okay.
direct all your comments at Chair,
I
unless you're
just
getting a
want to
point of
comment
information.
on what Ms. Rogers said, and I want to remind everybody, we took an oath. We can't go behind the federal government's back and do what we so choose to do.
Okay, I call for the vote on Ms. Rogers' substitute motion. Mine isn't showing up.
How do you vote? Okay, so Madam Chair, we have 2 ayes and 7 nays, so Mrs. Rogers' substitute motion or the amended resolution did not pass.
Okay, so we are back to Mr. Culpepper's original motion. I'm going to ask if there's any further discussion, since everyone has had the opportunity to speak, that you be succinct in your remarks. Is there any further discussion? Ms. Rogers?
I understand many of the board members feel like they need to be compliant, but I can't support something that is going to interrupt student learning.
Mr. Callen?
I appreciate all the comments and all the perspectives that are shared. These are not simple or easy issues to address and resolve. The one point that I did want to make, however, is the fact that the name change of this department is actually a return to the name of the department of just a few years ago. It had previously been known as the Department of Opportunity and Achievement. It's being asked to just return to that same name under these new conditions made available by this executive order. There's a great deal that accompanies the verbiage and the terminology in this day and age. But I think if we stop and reflect and realize that not too long ago, that's what the name of this department was. And it's a call to return to it. For that matter, I'm in favor of it.
Mr. Cummings?
I will be brief. I will not be supporting the current resolution as I do have serious concerns about suspending our policy. I mean, AP courses, everything in this, I just don't think that is given enough thought and time, and I'm very disappointed that we did not let the public have input. We did take an oath, and that oath also involved listening to our constituents, regardless of whether we agree or disagree. I've listened to very many constituents during my time in office, along with when I was running for office, and had conversations with folks. I do think this should have been pushed down the line for us to have more conversations and more public input, so I will not be supporting it.
Okay, now that everyone's had the chance to speak, I am going to briefly speak. On March 7th, one of our board members had asked how much federal funding we receive, and the total of those funds is $74,285,975. In fact, tonight we voted on 2 things that probably are connected to those federal funds. We are not in compliance with this at this time. We're just not. And we have to get into compliance. And so, I feel like the other thing is we're going to lose funding. Lunch was mentioned. If we don't get in compliance, the federal free and reduced cost lunch, reading materials for vulnerable students, funding for Title I schools, special education, McKinney-Vento Act. So those that need it the most. As far as policy 5-4 goes, there will be public input because this is going to come back to the board. In fact, the only thing that is in this resolved section that will not come back for a future vote is the name change. So I do support this. So I call for a vote on Mr. Culpepper's resolution to comply with legal obligations in exchange for receiving federal financial assistance. just to clarify, colleagues, our own school board rules say that once we call for the vote, we cannot go back into discussion. So that's the reason why we didn't go back in.
Okay, so Madam Chair, we have 6 ayes and 3 nays, so the motion to pass for the resolution presented by Mr. Culpepper.
Okay, thank you.